see everyone here. Who here has ever actually used Investopedia? Raise your hand. Woo! Okay, that's great. Every time that you use Investopedia, we make 4 pennies. 4 pennies, that's right, big money. So please continue to do so. I appreciate it. Okay, I want to start with a story. The story involves accelerating digital growth through data science. Because that's what the title of this, hopefully that's why you're here. August 24th, 2015. Not many of you may know this or remember this, but in the US, the market went down. The Dow, before the Dow opened, went down 1,000 points. The Dow was down 1,000 points before the market opened. I'm sitting there at my desk, worrying about my retirement, scared that we're going to have another 2001, 2008, known as a flash crash. Suddenly, the head of marketing comes running into my office, and he says, "David, you're not going to believe this, but our short selling tutorial is flying through the roof right now." And I swear it's a true story. So this is literally on the PowerPoint. You could see August 24th, 2015, biggest US market drop since 2011. And suddenly lots of people were reading about how to start learning to short sell, like immediately. And I thought, that's pretty cool. So what we decided to do is we created something with our data science team called the Investopedia Anxiety Index. Because what brand doesn't want to be known for its anxiety? We created the Anxiety Index, and we looked at, because we're the definitive place where people will look up terms. We have lots of other things going on in Investopedia, but we're certainly most known for our terms. It's about 36% of our traffic. And when people are looking up inflation, deflation, bankruptcy, recession, and suddenly tons of people are looking it up, well, that might mean something. Maybe there's a predictive nature to what we have on Investopedia that can predict things for the future. Wouldn't that be cool? So we created this index, and then we plotted it, and we saw, oh, there are lots of times when they're peaked. Lehman Brothers and the Greek bailout, US credit is downgraded. So there were different times where the index peaked. That's interesting, not that interesting, because if we're able to predict things, that's what's interesting. This part is kind of somewhat expected. So then we plotted it against the VIX. The VIX is known as, anyone want to scream it out what the VIX is known as? The Fear Index. Excellent, you nailed it. You have a job in Investopedia. So VIX is known as the Fear Index. So we thought, why don't we plot the Fear Index right next to the Anxiety Index? And if you look at it, it's like, oh, you know, lots of times where it goes up in similar times, but then we put them right on top of each other. And we saw something that was really amazing. The blue, the Anxiety Index, precedes the VIX every single time that there was a major increase in the VIX by 3 or 4 weeks. What that means is that people are looking up information on Investopedia around bankruptcy, recession, etc., prior to changes happening. And we've been using this as a point of differentiation through our data science team to accelerate our digital growth. We then had a trader actually look at whether our anxiety index can be used as a filter for trading, and it found that there's about a 460 basis point improvement in using the anxiety index instead of the VIX. So I wanted to share that with you just to start, because it's a great example of using data science to accelerate our growth. And I'll talk more about that soon. Okay. A little bit about Investopedia. We're pretty big. We have close to 30 million monthly users. About half of that is outside of the US. Half of that is in the US. We have over 200,000 pieces of financial education content as the world's largest finance and investing education site. We have 4 million newsletter subscribers. We have 1 million Facebook followers. And we just launched about 7 months ago Investopedia Academy, which I'm really excited about. It's basically the first massive open online course like Udemy or Khan Academy, solely focused on finance and investing. We have courses in day trading and financial modeling and Excel, all these really high-end courses, so feel free to check it out. Now I want to talk about 5 paths towards growing one's business and accelerating growth. So number 5 is what's called topic sizing content. So we have 2 astrophysicists on our team. They have PhDs in astrophysics. Apparently, the astrophysics market isn't like kind of what it used to be back in the day. And they joined Investopedia. I guess we pay a little more than some universities. And they help us to do something very important for someone who's creating 200,000 pieces of content. They help us to figure out what to write about. The old way of figuring out what to write about is getting a number of editors in the room and deciding, this is hot, this is cool, this is interesting, let's talk about different ideas. We still do some of that. But most of what we do is we built this proprietary system that looks at where there's a high demand for data, meaning that there are lots of people searching on Google, Yahoo, MSN, et cetera, for pieces of information. There's a low supply of that data, meaning that there's not enough information out there, and we create our content based on where there's a high demand and a low supply, all completely data-driven, all based on our data science team that helps us to figure out where there's a gap. So I know, and then by the way, after we publish something, we see the results, we feed it back into the system, and then the system becomes more and more intelligent in helping us to figure out what to write about, so that what we write about, we grow much faster and faster. Give you an idea of our growth. About 3 years ago, I was the 27th employee on Investopedia. We now have 135 employees, and we've about tripled our revenue over the last 4 years. So a big part of that is because we figured out what topics we should be writing about that truly are of interest to larger audiences, and we've been very strategic about that. So that's number 5. Going to number 4, a lot of people around here, the future's around AI. Of course it is. The future's around lots of really important machine learning, et cetera. But don't forget the past, meaning lots of people still get newsletters in their inbox. Lots of people. We've grown our newsletter business kind of very significantly. We have, and the reason why we've grown our newsletters is we've done a bunch of things. Number 1 is rather than just creating random newsletters on ETFs or stocks or short selling, we created a series. We created series of 15 different steps towards retirement, 15 different steps towards short selling, 15 steps to learning how to invest in ETFs versus mutual funds. And those emails come to you twice a week, and it's a way of really learning and building upon one another versus just random emails. The reason I thought of that is because I used to work at a company that owned What to Expect. You know What to Expect over here, the pregnancy site? So in the pregnancy site, there's a great email newsletter. There's tens of millions of people that are signed up. It's like your baby's the size of a chestnut. Your baby's the size of a honeydew. Now your baby's the size of watermelon. Time to go. It's a series of emails that people love signing up for. So by signing up people to a series, it helps. We have mobile responsive. The other thing that we did is we are creating our content specifically for email, specifically for social, as opposed to simply just creating content and having email and social just get the stuff left over. By having an approach that puts newsletters and social strategy first from an editorial content standpoint, it's really helped our growth. And personalization has been a very big deal. So we have a My Investopedia newsletter that's completely based on what type of things you read on Investopedia, what videos you've watched on Investopedia. We have 200 million video streams on our site, for example. It's based on information you've provided. And when we move to a personalized newsletter, our open rates and our engagement rates doubled and tripled respectively. So important to build personalization into an email type experience. If you're not, you're way behind the times. Okay, number 3, social media. One of the things that we did in Investopedia, believe it or not, is we fired about 80% of our Facebook followers when I first joined. That sounds insane, right? Insane. But the reason we did that was because there was a KPI before I joined of get as many Facebook followers as possible. So we ended up having 80% of our Facebook followers were in India, Pakistan, or some place where you could buy Facebook followers at like a tenth of a penny, a really, really cheap amount. And they weren't engaging in our content. And you know what happens when you publish things on Facebook and they don't engage in your content? Eduardo's saying it's that you don't actually get in other people's feeds. Your engagement rate gets killed if you have lots of followers. So we literally fired 80% of our people on Facebook, of our followers, went from 1 million to 200,000. Now we're back up to 1 million with people who are really engaged. And we have very different approaches on Facebook versus Twitter, which is all about news for us, versus LinkedIn, which is all about financial professional relationships. And having a very differentiated strategy has been a very important part of our digital growth. Moving on, my clicker stopped clicking. So my clicker stopped clicking. I know you're playing with that. There we go. Now it's clicking again. Thank you. So we actually own retirement on Facebook. We didn't pay anything for it. We called up Facebook. Well, we didn't really call them up because no one actually calls anyone anymore. We emailed them, and we said, does anyone own facebook.com/retirement? And they're like, no. So we took it, and we got it, which is a pretty good deal. So if there are things that you can potentially own on Facebook, literally you go to facebook.com/retirement, you end up on Investopedia, call them. Why not? It's worth a shot. We tried it, and it's working for us, and we're getting tons of users through facebook.com/retirement. Next thing, who here has ever looked up a term on Investopedia? Raise your hand. Okay, you looked up lots of terms. The strategy that we want to focus on to accelerate our growth was to go from terms to topics. Meaning, just looking at a site that's a term is not that interesting. Frankly, there's something called Google, the definitions that you can find on Google right now, and it's not a way to differentiate, it's a commoditized thing. So what we've done is, you look up a term, we'll see news related to that term. Meaning it's one thing to look up the term negative interest rates. It's another thing to then see in the news what Japan's doing in negative interest rates, what Switzerland's doing in negative interest rates, embedding news into terms, embedding opinion and columnist pieces into terms, embedding infographics and charts and data into terms, having tutorials and research, having widgets and tools that you could play with. If you want to look up PE ratio, you don't care about the definition. Let's find out also what the top PE ratios are in the world. Let's find out what companies' PE ratios have changed. Let's find out all these different things. Videos. So what we've done is we've turned terms into topics. An example of that is around impact investing. So impact investing is a very big deal in finance today. It's a very big deal. Every financial asset management firm is talking about impact investing. This one happens to be sponsored by Envestnet. If you want to sponsor one, let me know, Francisco. And it's an example of the wheel. So we got the wheel over here, and we have all these different wheels on our site where people are able to learn about areas beyond terms going into topics. Moving to the last thing. Believe it or not, a week ago, I just came back from a month-long, I came in and out, I wasn't there the entire month, tour bus that was actually used, this entire bus, prior to us, about 6 months, a year prior, by Justin Bieber. It had a bed in the back. We transitioned to an office, of course. But it's a 50-foot bus that we drove financial freedom, get the pun, through Kansas City and Chicago and Indianapolis and about 5 other cities, where we went around with financial advisors. The reason why we did that is both to help people to promote financial literacy, but it's also to drive direct traffic to our site. You can't be a great digital company if you're just simply a site that people end up on. You need to be a site that people are going to. So part of our brand building exercise is around promoting financial literacy, which in the United States is absolutely woeful. Of about 20 countries, the largest countries in the world, we're the wealthiest, and we also are the 14th most literate from a financial perspective, which is terrible. The average retirement savings in the US is $55,000. We don't have big pensions to be able to rely on in the US as well, so it's a particularly concerning situation. So driving direct traffic through the Investopedia bus is something I focus on as well. And last thing, and I'll open up with the last 4 minutes for questions, is this is a summary of the 5 topics that I talked about. Focus on content sizing. You don't necessarily have to hire data scientists. You can look at what's trending on Google. You can look at what's trending on Twitter. Or you can hire yourself a little data scientist on the side. Focusing on newsletters, social media, driving significant volume of content, and then focusing on direct to really get people going directly to your site. Homepage is about double the amount of traffic than what it used to be, which is important for us. If anyone would like a copy of this presentation, my email is over here. If you would have any questions, it's over here. If you want to get a discount at Investopedia Academy and take a course on day trading or whatever you want to take a course on, technical investing, financial modeling for a discount, then you can send me an email and I can send it over to you. I'm here. I got 3 minutes. So does anyone here have a question? Raise your hand if you have a question. And this kind gentleman over here will bring the mic over to you. If you don't have a question, then I'm going to have to practice my push-ups on stage. I did 8 of them this morning, so watch out. Okay, we got one. Yeah.
Hello, in terms of traffic, what is the greatest, highest contributor?
Okay, so Antoine asked, what is the greatest contributor to traffic? So 3 years ago, SEO, search, represented about 87% of our traffic, which is like terrifying. It's like your one Google algorithm, panda penguin change away from getting fired. Basically, that's what I was told as CEO. It was great, day one. We're now down to it being, we've about tripled our non-SEO traffic over the last 3 years. But we've also increased our SEO traffic, which is a good thing too. But basically, we're now down to about 68% of our traffic is SEO, but that's a big difference. And we're continuing to focus on how we could grow that, decrease that percentage without actually decreasing the amount of SEO traffic, because that wouldn't be a very good thing. Okay, Vivek has a question with 2 minutes left.
Do you have any YouTube strategies or anything like that to drive traffic?
So Vivek's question was, do we have a YouTube strategy? YouTube is tough. YouTube's really tough because they like to keep their traffic on YouTube. So Facebook drives tons of traffic for us. Twitter, LinkedIn, we get a decent amount of traffic from. YouTube, we get very little traffic, but we do have a strategy. Our entire strategy for YouTube is focused on Investopedia Academy. Because Investopedia Academy is these deep 5 to 8 hours of video in these courses. We're putting snippets of courses up on YouTube and then having calls to action at the end of a 5-minute overview on something to drive people back to our site for Investopedia Academy. So it works because it's more of an e-commerce play, and we're getting very high quality users from YouTube, even though the volume of traffic we get from YouTube is pretty minimal. Even though we have about 200 million video streams, they don't tend to go from YouTube back to us. Great question, Vivek. Okay, last question with 50 seconds left. Over here. Oh, sorry. Maybe we'll do 2.
Do you have any projects that are not related to your core business that is like...
Do we have a what?
Like other projects that are
other projects
internally...
not related to our core business?
Yeah. And what are they?
Okay, so the question was, do we have any projects not related to our core business? So I just got the results of my 360-degree feedback, actually, and the thing that I rank the worst in is I prioritize too many different initiatives. So I think we do. Our core business is a media business. So our focus is how do we get lots of traffic, then monetize it with advertising and really quality content and product experiences. The 2 other areas that we're focused on is number 1, Investopedia Academy. The second is something I haven't spoken about, but it's called performance marketing. That's our next big area. What I mean by that is if people know Bankrate, people know LendingTree, people know Credit Karma, those companies do hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, billions of dollars of value. I'll be done in a second. And the question is, how can Investopedia, a trusted source, help people to figure out the right mortgage to buy, the right credit cards to buy, the right brokerage to use, the right financial products to purchase? And that's our next big area of focus that we're very excited about. And we believe that will be 2, 3, 4x the size of Investopedia. If anyone wants to talk afterwards, I am going to stand behind the video camera over there and have an awesome rest of the time over here. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.